Well, it's Friday again, boys, and 95.7 The Hog and The Morning Hog. Proud to bring another installment of Riggs and Guys Brew Review. Let's hear it for the Brew Review. And Vinnie from S.R. PIERRE. It's right there. Read it.
Right there.
Yeah, just imagine it being there. Vinnie, hi.
How we doing today? How was your week last week?
I don't remember it.
Oh, good. So you drank the beer.
Yes, I did. It was really good.
Awesome.
And I already see this is going to be good trouble today. And Jeff is here. Introduce Jeff.
Hey, this is Jeff from Central 28. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing real well. Thank you for having me here.
Awesome. Jeff's the brewer, owner, cashier, money taker, everything else down there. And I'll let him tell you the whole story.
A man of many hats.
Yeah, fortunately, we do have a wonderful staff that helps us do a lot of those things because I don't think I'd be very good at some of them. But I am one of the co-owners and the brewer at Central 28. We're in DeBary. And we've been operating for about almost 3 years now. We make pretty classic, what most people might expect from an American craft brewery. Some hoppy stuff, some Belgian stuff, but we try to do it with our own twist and our own flavor.
So, Jeff, how many years have you been brewing?
I've been brewing, I think it was 93 or 94.
Really?
Wow,
So
nice.
It's been a while.
Was that basically the front end of like home brew and stuff, or is that a professional brew? But home brew, I guess it has to start somewhere,
Homebrew
right?
has been around for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the hub when everything really got started with
Really?
crafts. And crafts got started, what'd you say, Jeff, about the 80s? And then they had that peak a little bit in the mid-80s and then the drop off. And then the 90s that picked back up again.
I think they typically call it that mid-90s, that first wave. It was the first sort of craft boom, and then it crashed in the late 90s. Then in the early 2000s is when it started to pick up again, and we're sort of kind of cruising along since then.
So why don't we take a look at the beers and
Let's
we can get
do
started?
it, man. Vinnie, what are we sampling today? There's too many choices.
All right, so the first one is Underduck Lager. This is a classic German-style lager that we make. It's somewhere between a Pilsner and a Helles. Light, drinkable, refreshing, but I think it's got a really great depth of character as well. So, the last thing I would call it is a boring lager.
Right.
But it's still, it's something that you can go to on a hot day and it works out.
Give us that defining line between a lager, an IPA, a Pils, any of that stuff. What sets a lager apart?
The biggest thing with lager is yeast.
Yeah.
So it would be there's hundreds of different brewing specific yeasts. Some are lager yeast, some are ale yeast, and this uses lager yeast. So that would be the broad split.
Yeah.
While the rest of these beers we're going to sample today are all ales.
Okay. Process essentially the same. It's just starts out different, right?
And takes a little bit longer for a lager to brew versus an ale.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, it's fermented colder, so the yeast works a little more slowly. You tend to get less fruity notes, and it's more maybe more malt accentuating. And,
Okay.
Less, less aggressive. Typically, is how people perceive it.
A little bit drier, would you say?
Sometimes.
I would say it's a great beer. I love it. It's something that after I get done mowing the lawn, I would crave it. That is a great afternoon sunny beer.
Cool.
It's really good.
Yeah, I mean it's my go-to after work. So, I hear you.
And I've had heavier lagers. I like this. I like the drinkability factor.
It's nice and smooth.
Yeah.
It's nice and clean, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. That was our first sample. Vinnie, what's next? There's more.
Next is Dancing Pierre. So Dancing Pierre is named essentially for my brother-in-law, Dan, whose name is Dan St. Pierre. He used to run a different business, and he went to get some business cards made, and when the person asked him what his name was, he said Dan St. Pierre, and they said, wow, Dancing Pierre, that's an awesome name.
It is.
He told me the story, and I thought we kind of had to name a beer after it.
And the logo's fun, the The can is phenomenal too.
To kind of bring up a point,
Yeah.
names. How tough are names to come up with now, right? Since there's over 5,000 breweries and every brewery has anywhere from 20 to 30 different beers.
Right.
To come up with a different name for each one of them is very, very
Well, that's
tough.
true. I guess you used to be. You could just throw something creative out there, and you're like, no, there's no way anybody's got that. But
Yeah,
now you
no,
probably
it's like
you got to check a database now or something.
Yeah, there's beer review websites that
Okay.
that pretty much have logged just about everything.
Okay.
And yeah, some beers it almost decides for itself what it's going to be called, and it's
Yeah.
easy.
Okay.
But sometimes it's really, really, really hard.
Is there a debating process that goes on? Do you have the final say, or you have to?
No. And honestly, my wife comes up with she comes up with more names than anybody else.
Yeah.
The underduck is I'd never heard of this. Apparently, that's when you're pushing somebody on the swing,
Right.
and you run underneath them. That's called an underduck. When you said underduck, I was like,
That can be very dangerous after a few
sounds-
beers.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. No, I mean, it sounded awesome, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But so if it sounds good, then
This dancing Pierre would go really, really good with pizza. It's a perfect match with pizza.
Yeah?
Sitting on the couch.
Look at you
Hey,
in there.
baby, go get me a beer, please.
know.
Or I get up and get my own beer because I'm smart. Yeah, that'd be the first one I'd grab.
it's Belgian style, so it's a little fruity.
Yeah.
It's got a light spicy hop note, but it's at the same time it's very drinkable and very approachable.
What is the fruity notes that we're getting in here?
Uh,
Feels orange, but I don't feel like it's orange.
Yeah, well, you're going to get definitely a little bit of citrus
Okay.
from the hops
Yeah.
and a little bit from the yeast. There's also maybe even some light vanilla or bubblegum
Really?
notes from
Okay.
the yeast as well.
Nice.
So there's a lot of the Belgian yeast tend to contribute a lot of complexity to
Okay.
beer.
Yeah, you get a lot of times at Belgian yeast, you get a strong banana. You get some clove. You get
Clove,
some
sure.
bubble gum.
Yep.
You get a little bit of everything. That's
Yeah.
that's a good part. People don't realize with beer you can change it so much just by changing the yeast or changing the temperatures a little bit or using different hops or whatever else. You can adjust beer. You pretty much have to be a scientist, right, to really get in there to get that stuff
Yeah,
going.
man, I'm certainly not a scientist. I know a good amount about yeast, but there's people that know an extraordinary amount about yeast. And it is really, in my mind, the unsung hero of beer. As Vinnie was saying, you could take the same exact recipe, just change out the yeast,
Right.
and all of a sudden you have a completely different beer.
Why are
So-
the Belgians so good at it? What makes them so good at it? Jeff, this is the hardest hitting question you'll get all day.
I
And if you're Belgian out there watching this, we're talking about you.
I think
What?
it's because they like to drink.
Yeah.
That's
Is
the
that
whole
what it is?
situation over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is part of our brewery's story and our
Yeah.
family's story. My heritage is Belgian. and
Really?
My wife's heritage is Belgian as well. So
I just offended your entire
yeah, I
family.
know, you kinda
yeah.
did, yeah.
Well, no, I meant it in a good way. I mean, because all of the stuff that I like the most is Belgian. The flavor, the taste, all the history that I hear, and
Yeah.
there's like a ton of breweries in Belgium as well,
Well,
right?
a lot of it goes back to the monks.
Yeah.
Right. They were one of
Right.
the first to start brewing, and they were using it for fasting. They would drink a pint a day.
Right.
And they controlled a lot of the hops, and
Yeah.
before they got into using hops, they had gruits, what they call spices, and they controlled the spices. So
Okay.
a lot of that comes out of that Belgian area with the monks and the way they created it.
Yeah.
So they've been doing it for a long, long, long time.
Right.
Right, Europe has always had a very rich beer culture and beer history. Belgium, their history just happens to be a little more iconoclastic, where they're a little bit more offbeat.
Right.
Where the Germans are very German, and
Right.
it's you do it this way, and this is how it's done.
Yeah.
The Belgians approach things a little bit
Right.
differently.
I like to tell people the Belgians threw everything but the kitchen sink in.
Yeah.
But the Americans are now putting the kitchen sink in. Too,
Okay.
So we've gone that far.
Well, and I've heard those stories about the monks too. I mean, it was basically an anything goes situation, right? When they first all began, they just had those big open buckets,
Yep.
basically,
Yep.
and just let's try some stuff.
See what happens.
Yeah,
Yep,
I like
absolutely.
that.
I have a question. When do you know that you have the right recipe after you sip it? Or are you just like, yeah, it needs this, needs that. We'll need a little more salt. Or do you like just give a high five and say, yeah, that's it?
I mean, I think it's it really varies. Some beers take a long time to really get them to where you want. Others, it's like first time.
Really?
I think it's the closest thing I could compare it to would be like a songwriter. Sometimes, Keith Richards wakes up in the morning and Satisfaction's in his head, and then other times you're working on a song for years and it finally comes together. It's the process.
You gotta have some patience.
Yeah.
And beer as well.
All right.
Which helps a lot.
So
All
the
right,
next
Vinny,
one
what's
we have-
next?
Upriver. Okay, so this is our biggest selling beer. It's an American-style pale ale,
Okay.
which means it's an ale fermented with an American yeast strain and hopped with some varieties of hops that tend to accentuate pine, grapefruit, citrus,
Okay.
those sorts of notes.
So that's the APA versus IPA difference, right?
Right. So it's
Yeah.
not quite as hoppy as an IPA would be, although, the truth is, going back to when I started brewing, if somebody had made a beer like this would have been an IPA in 1996 or 97 or whatever.
Yeah.
But things have gotten amped up a little bit in the last, in the last 10, 15 years.
Once
So-
again, the Americans like to do things big.
Yeah.
Right.
So they always
Right.
take it to another level.
Yeah.
So we have to add different levels in there.
Right.
Yeah. See, this is a Riggs kind of hop right here.
Yeah, this is more where I'm at too, yeah.
Yeah. This one kind of, if and sometimes I will, if I'm trying a new beer, whatever, you can find a flavor, find a good taste, but when you find your sweet spot with so that's the American hops, I guess, right? Is basically what.
Yeah, and and there's certain, like we talked about with yeast. Some yeasts are just by their nature accentuate malt more effectively.
Okay.
And some accentuate hop flavors more effectively, and that's just kind of what they are.
Yeah.
And the yeast strain we use in this is a pretty popular and pretty classic American ale yeast, which is really good at accentuating hop flavor.
Yeah.
Those other two beers are really good to sit down and relax. This beer is one of those beers, as soon as you crack it and taste it, now I'm drinking a beer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot more assertive than the other two.
Yeah.
That's actually our best seller, the Upriver. We do
Yeah.
the best with that on draft and in package.
Yeah. Where can we find some of those, by the way,
there
Vinny?
again, we can find it at your local Total Wines, your ABCs, your local independents,
Okay.
anywhere on pretty much a lot of places on tap. We have it out and about.
Yeah.
The half walls. You can go down to their area down in DeBary to go to their
We do have a tap room.
and
Yeah.
which is open Wednesday through.
We're actually opening in May, starting Tuesdays as well. So the only day we'll be closed is Monday.
Look at Jeff. He's like, great. We're adding another day.
Yeah, right. Unfortunately, I don't have to deal too much with
Okay.
that. So it's kind of other folks have to.
So it's
figure
been
that out.
it's out and about. We've been doing
Yeah.
a great job with it. So like
One
I
more
say,
question
it's
about the
really good
APA too. Why do you not see as many APAs as IPAs?
beer. You do. They just don't
Yeah.
call them APAs. They
Right,
call
oh,
them
yeah.
pale ales.
Is
Like
it?
Sierra Nevada
Okay.
is probably one of the classic APAs out
Yeah,
there.
I mean, Sierra Nevada really is sort of, at least for me, that was, a brewery and a beer that sort of, I can't say enough
Yeah.
about what they mean to me and what they've done and what
Right.
they've done for American beer.
Right.
It's just,
Really?
and that beer really is sort of it's the granddaddy.
This is like your cover song or your tribute track to the Sierra Nevada.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's certainly more aggressively hopped.
Yeah.
But without a doubt, and I mean, you're not going to find too many craft brewers in America that at one point or another weren't, tremendously, influenced or at least inspired by the Sierra Nevada's beer and their story.
Yeah.
So.
And I would assume too. I mean, you have to be a fan of some kind of beer,
Sure.
to be able to do this job effectively. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't. To bring it back to music, I couldn't. What musician isn't a fan of other musicians?
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. I don't listen to anything else.
Right,
Really?
Right. Just me.
Listen-
Yeah. No way. I mean,
yeah.
that's crazy. Yeah. You see what other people do in it. And I love it when I taste somebody's beer and I'm like, oh my God, that's just, it makes you take your own work up a level.
Right.
I think it's really important to
Yeah.
be, to be in tune with what people are doing and the work they're doing, because it keeps you honest.
All right. One more thing about musicians, and if we can all take a look at Jeff real quick. What musician does Jeff most resemble? Anybody? Go ahead, guy. Here's a hint. We talked about him on the show this week. and he may be a drummer. That's right, Lars Ulrich of Metallica. Yes, correct. Congrats. You guys win nothing.
Okay. You know what else we talked about?
Right? He looks
If you're
like
going to
Lars.
quiz me, you got to give me a chance.
But then here's the weird thing. I have been told I look like Lars too. So I don't know if you guys are freaking out. But if Jeff and I look identical, you need to tell me now. So
it's
we
like
can-
a mirror.
We can fix this in Photoshop afterwards. He's wearing a hat. I'm not.
Absolutely, that's the only difference I
But
see.
if I put my hat on over here, it would be so weird.
It's 100%.
It'd be like a mirror. All right. Sorry, Jeff. I had to throw that in. I just occurred to me. I was like, oh, it's Lars Ulrich. I'm talking to Lars Ulrich about beer. It's pretty nice. All right. You're holding our last of our 4 big samples today.
All right, so this is Show Pigeon IPA.
Okay.
So this is another one that has a pretty good story to the name. We were having trouble naming our IPA,
Yeah.
and there was literally a pigeon with a band that started showing up on our back dock, and we're like, "What's this pigeon doing?"
Yeah.
And first we tried to get him to go away, and then we realized he was just going to hang out.
Yeah.
And right when I got okay with him just hanging out, he took off. And we never saw him again until a few weeks later. My wife and I were working the tap room. We had a big beer release, and we were cleaning up. We were tired, and all of a sudden, even further back in the brewery, back up by the tap room, this little guy was clucking around, and it was like, oh man,
Really?
he's back. And then that's the last time we ever saw him.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but it was, banded pigeon. It was beautiful. So he's the show pigeon, and we named our IPA after him.
Nice.
Again, an outstanding label.
Yeah, and we like birds. I don't
Yeah.
know what our thing is, but apparently we like birds.
I assume you guys have done this at some point in time too. I will buy if I'm just going out and want to try something, I'll buy a beer based on the label.
Yeah, absolutely.
Graphics are very important.
Yeah.
And that's what catches the eye when you're looking at an aisle with 30 different, 40 different craft beers
Sure.
in it. That label's going to catch your eye.
Yeah.
And then take a look at it. Most of the time, you're right. You're going to take it home.
Yeah, you guys do have some very interesting labels, and I like it.
Cool.
The show pigeon is probably one of my favorite ones.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so tell me about this. Tell me what we're tasting in here, because this
So
is definitely
this beer is an American IPA, really assertive, super assertive.
Oh, yeah, it is.
American hop note. Really intensely fruity.
yeah.
Citrusy.
This has more fruit than definitely than last.
A little bit dank is maybe sometimes what some people might say that.
Yeah.
But more of the classic, what is seen as American IPA these days. So
Love this
less
stuff.
piney, more citrus fruit.
That is definitely going to be my go-to beer.
Yeah,
Out of all these,
the show pigeon.
hell yeah. It's the most in-your-face, aggressive. I love it.
I thought Upriver was. Now you're changing.
No,
it.
no, well, I didn't
it
taste
got
this one
it got
yet.
Topped, yeah. Also, guy's going to start raising pigeons.
Oh.
Or
No,
racing
I like
pigeons.
raging pigeons.
I like
Yeah.
raging pigeons, too. I like that.
Isn't that what Mike Tyson did? Right, Mike Tyson does.
He raged with the pigeon? Is that what you're saying?
He races.
He did.
Pigeons, yeah.
I'm going to bite his head off.
Who knew? Who knew that it'd be inspired by? All right, so really, obviously, 4 different beers, but there are some similarities in those last 2 American Pale Ales that we tried. But for what when you go in with a project, do you have in your mind to begin with what it is you want to make and then try to make the ingredients fit, or do you just go and whatever happens you assign a label to it
I
afterwards?
think usually you're inspired by the moment. I mean, that's the cool thing about beer, that it's a very I don't know, it's an occasion-centric beverage.
Right.
So there's like a beer for every moment.
Yeah.
And that's really one of the things I love about beer. And so, if maybe it's a season, maybe it's a holiday, maybe it's a weather moment. It's hot. There's a beer for every moment, and usually it's inspired by that, and then you sort of work backwards into, okay, well, how am I gonna fit this occasion? Sometimes you're inspired maybe more by flavors or by something that just pops into your head. But I really like the fact that beer is so can find itself so perfectly suited to every moment.
Yeah.
That's how I tend to approach.
This is a football watching beer right here. Absolutely.
They're all football watching.
Yeah. I have no problem with any beer during football, but I get you.
The cool part about it is, like you talked about earlier, the beer is almost like music. It depends on how you feel that
Sure.
day and what you're going to listen to. And
Absolutely.
it is, when people ask you what your favorite beer is, it's hard to pinpoint it because it depends on the mood. It depends on everything, like you were talking about. So it's kind of a cool situation that it goes hand in hand with music if you look at it that way.
Yeah, excellent.
Right, and I don't. I think wine is an amazing beverage, and I think spirits are super cool. I don't think any of them have the adaptability to different moments that beer does. I'm obviously biased, but that's kind of my take on
You
it.
can actually pair beer up with food better than you can pair wine up with food.
I believe so.
I would definitely agree with that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, if you guys want to see what beers we're talking about, you can go to central28beer.com right now to find out exactly what beers we were trying and how everything's labeled and stuff.
How many are you currently juggling over there in DeBary?
Too many.
Too many.
We've always got to make things a little more challenging.
Yeah.
Add to the difficulty level.
Right.
But we have 6 beers we do year round. These 4, and we also do a beer called Trekker beer, which is another Belgian-style ale, and Miss Mary Brown, which is a American brown ale.
Okay.
And then we have a rotating cast of seasonal beers that kind of come around, and then you don't see them again until next year.
Can you just talk a little bit about one of my favorites that you do, and you release it once a year, and you have a great release party for it? El Bulli. That is
Sure.
one of the best beers I've ever had.
What's it called again?
El Bulli.
Oh, okay.
So El Bulli, this would be an example of a beer where it's sort of like you're inspired by something more than the moment. I was reading about a chef in Spain, Ferran Adria, who's a kind of the godfather of molecular gastronomy. So,
Really?
basically breaking food down into its components and then reconstructing them in a different fashion.
Okay.
And so this beer was, the idea was, okay, let's take a tiramisu, break it down, and reconstruct it as a beer. So it's got coffee, which is coffee that we get from our good friends at Trilogy Roasters in DeLand.
Okay.
And so we like to keep it local if we can. We've got cocoa nibs in there, vanilla, and milk sugar. So
Okay.
it's sort of all the elements of a tiramisu, but put back together as a beer.
Wow.
So it's a sweet stout,
Yeah.
very strong, a little bit of a alcohol bite.
Okay.
And we do a release party on Black Friday every year.
Oh, wow.
It's an amazing beer.
Really?
I've actually got 3 years in a row flight that I have to come down, and we'll go ahead and try all 3.
All right.
That familiar flavor is still there. Is there anything that isn't out yet that you're working on that you hope to spring on everybody sometime in the next few months?
I mean, there's always stuff happening. I mean, we are packaging. We've got a blood orange IPA that we're packaging
Oh, cool.
next week.
Excellent.
That's one of my favorite beers we do.
That's
And
become like a hot thing, the blood orange, hasn't it?
it
seems like
the blood orange character pairs so well with the American hops.
Yeah.
It's sort of this like, where does the orange stop and the hop begin?
Right.
It's a fun thing.
excellent.
And we're doing our idea coffee porter. We're packaging tomorrow, and that'll be out in a couple weeks as well. So
Cool. Jeez,
yeah.
it never stops.
No, it really does.
Now, where can people find you again?
We are at 290 Springview Commerce Drive in DeBary, which is, we're in an industrial park, but very not far at all off of 1792 in
Okay.
DeBary.
And soon to be on Tuesdays. So you can go over and stalk them on Tuesdays.
That's right.
You can have a taco truck Tuesday, or
We have food trucks most days.
Yeah?
But again, that's not really my area of expertise. So I'm
Put
not
Vinnie
sure.
on the case. He'll get you a taco truck.
So you have an area where people can come in, sit down, relax, and enjoy
Yeah,
beers.
it's a bar
Yeah.
essentially.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
we don't like to call it a bar,
Yeah.
but it's a bar and
Tasting room,
it's
right?
a-
Is that the
it's a tasting room,
Right.
You get a nice view of the brewery, so you get to harass me and whoever else is working back there. And,
right?
But it's yeah, it's a comfortable place where, you know, I think folks enjoy coming together, and it's to me one of the cool things about beer, that it's a real that's part of where our name comes from. Central 28 is that traditionally brewing is central to the community.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those cornerstone neighborhood industries. And when people gather around a couple pints, you know, that's when the good stuff happens.
Yeah.
Again, if you guys want more information, it's central28beer.com.
Yeah, I know. It's our web guy over there, Guy.
That's awesome.
He's got in
Doing
charge of
great.
the web. I don't know how to get on the thing. All right, well, this is good. I'm ready to. We're ready to come over and stalk you there at home. Oh, is there one flavor? Is there something that you would like to? And it may not be like a Captain Crunch beer or is there something, some flavor, some food, something that you would like to incorporate into a beer that you haven't done yet?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'd like to.
I love pepperoni
I'd like
a lot.
to have people stop making cereal-inspired beers. That would be great.
That has been happening, right?
Yeah, it has. It's a little much. But
My Lucky Charms beer
but
did
if
not
it-
turn out well at all. It did not go well.
I don't. You know, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've used a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing pops up offhand. But
I'm sure there's some stuff that just doesn't work, though, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure.
I would assume pepperoni would be one of those things. I would assume a meat would not really pair itself well with the process, with the brewing process.
Yeah, it's there's some things that are unfortunate pairings.
Yeah.
You learn the hard way.
They do bacon beers, but
Oh,
don't they
yeah.
do that was usually with smoking the malts to try to get that smoky flavor? Is
Yeah.
that how they do that with the bacon beers?
I don't know. You know, I mean, I enjoy smoked beers. I've never had one that has, you know, made with bacon.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have to do some sort of tincture to pull the flavor out, but not put the fat in the beer. I don't know how they do that, but I've never had one. So
Okay, so we're not going to see any pigs show up on the back door soon.
no, we won't be making any.
No, only
Okay.
pigeons. Only pigeons. Well, although it's the idea really, it's a shortcut. You just make some bacon and drink the beer.
And eat
Drink
it
a
at the
Central
same
28
time.
beer. Yeah,
so,
then you got to
so
cover.
I've got one for
Yeah,
you. that
okay.
This was not my choice, but there's we have a competition. I guess it's a competition. It's a friendly competition in Central Florida. The guys at Boegan's Brewery in Castleberry put it on every year. It's they call it Top Brewer.
Okay.
And we randomly have to pick flavors or ingredients.
It's like an Iron Chef thing for brewers. Okay.
Right. So I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to draw almonds, which I wasn't upset about, but I also got Cuttlefish ink,
Oh,
which is basically squid ink. So
wow.
it should be, but I've got a good idea. You can also add other things, so I will be adding other things.
Wow.
So we'll see how that goes. I'm actually at first I was a little bit squeamish about it, but then I
Okay, we have to have you back for
Yeah,
that
right.
because that sounds like a challenge for you and I, guys.
My question
I'm
is,
down.
Yeah.
My question is, how do you milk the cuttlefish?
Yeah, I don't know. I just got it in a jar. That's
Well,
somebody else's jar.
Here's an image of that. Okay, no, we can't show it on. All right. Wow, the internet just shut us down. Well, man, thank you. Yeah, I feel smarter now, and I feel thirsty because there are more beers there. So we'll go get those. Central28.com, of course.
Central28beer.com.
Beer.com. See? Web guy. I told you. I didn't know it. Vinnie, SR Parat, you guys got these fine products all over the place, right?
Absolutely. And don't forget, we have the Beer Fest at the ballpark, Tortugas Ballpark this weekend. And you'll be able to come out and sample. Jeff will actually be there at the Beer Fest.
I will
and
be there.
I've got about 20 other brewers that are going to be out there, plus we have some other guys showing up. So
I'm going to recommend the show pigeon.
Yeah.
okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No kidding. All right. Well, for that, let's wrap up the show. See you next time.
Thank you so much.